It's time to put the good in your morning. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. And today, another hold on evictions. We'll have the latest as CDC implements a new eviction moratorium.
The sun beating down on a Wednesday morning, but the weather trend certainly not too hot this time of August, but a heat wave is on the way. All the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, we make another pet connection with the SEK Humane Society. The KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 starts now.
The four states' most watched news starts now.
Thanks for joining us for the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. I'm Zach Dodge. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention announced a new 60-day moratorium that will stop evictions in certain areas of the country with high or substantial transmission of COVID-19. It comes after a previous moratorium expired over the weekend. President Biden said the new moratorium will face legal scrutiny, but would provide the time needed for emergency rental assistance to reach troubled tenants.
The courts made it clear that the existing moratorium was not constitutional. It wouldn't stand. We have billions of dollars that we've given to states to provide for rent and utilities for those people who can't afford to stay in their homes because they can't, in an apartment, they can't pay their rent. And so we're urging them to distribute those funds to the landlord.
The CDC says evicting people could be detrimental to public health and would interfere with efforts to slow the pandemic. The moratorium will remain in effect until October 3rd. Numbers are in from Election Day as voters in parts of the area decide tax issues impacting schools, emergency services, and community improvements. We begin with a proposal to extend a quarter-cent sales tax in Joplin for 10 years. Voters said yes to that plan to pay for stormwater control and parks. Voters in Carthage were asked whether to allow the city to collect a use tax, which would apply to purchases made online and from out-of-state vendors. It would be the same rate as the local sales tax. The proposal passed. City officials estimate the tax will generate around $740,000 a year. A Jasper County proposal will allow the 911 board to increase its sales tax rate above the 0.1% it currently receives. Voters approved the plan allowing a tax of up to 0.25%. In Kansas, Columbus, Kansas voters accepted a $14.75 million school bond proposal. It will fund various improvements and additions to the central campus facility, including new classrooms, safe room, cafeteria, and kitchen. And in Chautauqua, Kansas, voters said yes to a half-cent 5-year sales tax proposal for parks and street maintenance and improvements. We'll have more election results later on in the show, and as always, you can find all the election numbers right now at KOAMnewsnow.com. New this morning, Missouri Republican Congressman Billy Long announces his candidacy for U.S. Senate. Long represents Missouri's 7th District, which includes both Joplin and Springfield. He'll be seeking the seat of retiring Senator Roy Blunt. He enters a high Republican field that includes Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt, former Governor Eric Greitens, Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler, and St. Louis Mayor Mark McCloskey. One of the largest employers in the 4 states announces it's requiring vaccines for its U.S.-based workforce. Tyson Foods made the announcement yesterday. The company also announced it would give $200 to fully vaccinated team members. Tyson's chief medical officer said, quote, "Getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is the single most effective thing we can do to protect our team members, their families, and their communities." Pittsburgh State University announces new COVID-19 mitigation measures. Prior to moving into residence halls, students will have to either submit proof of vaccination, show they've had the virus at some point since March, have a negative test within 72 hours of arrival, or be willing to take a COVID test when they arrive for move-in day. The university is encouraging faculty, staff, and students to get vaccinated and will offer incentives to vaccinated students. Additionally, all faculty, staff, and students will be required to wear masks indoors regardless of vaccination status if social distancing is not possible. The policy will be reviewed every 2 weeks. More information can be found on our website. Republican Kansas Attorney General Derek Schmidt wants to curb the power of Governor Laura Kelly and local officials to impose COVID-19 restrictions, and he's taking that fight to the state's highest court. Schmidt says he's asked the Kansas Supreme Court to keep in place a law that limits Kelly's powers and local officials' authority, even though a Johnson County trial court judge struck it down last month. Schmidt is appealing the judge's ruling and wants the decision put on hold in the meantime. The Republican-controlled legislature enacted the law earlier this year to prevent Kelly from restricting businesses or imposing a statewide mask mandate. People in Miami are donating blood as part of the Boots and Badges blood drive. The event is a friendly competition between the Miami police and fire departments. Anyone 16 years old and older is asked to stop by the Miami Civic Center to donate blood. Donors will be given a Boots and Badges t-shirt, a ticket to a local attraction, and be entered to win a pair of tickets to see country music artist Granger Smith at Buffalo Run Casino and Resort on Friday.
You know, they realize that police and firemen are heroes, but our blood donors are also heroes, because without that bag of blood at the hospital, they're risking their lives to save someone that may not make it at the hospital if we don't have blood there for that patient who might be having a bleeding emergency.
The event will continue from noon to 6 p.m. And Michael, here's a story I know you're gonna love.
He does it on purpose.
I know,
he does it
right?
on purpose to me, and Dow did it yesterday, and it go. I go. I'm looking at maps.
I'm waiting to see what your reaction is going to be. But when a couple purchased this 1872 Pennsylvania farmhouse, they knew it needed work. What they didn't know is a colossal colony of bees hidden inside the walls would result in a complete gut job. The couple said they were aware there were bees in the home, but once the experts started removing wall panels, they found nearly 500,000 bees, estimated to have been there some 35 years. 3 colonies were safely relocated to a bee farm, but the couple now faces a stinging price tag of $12,000 for the removal and resulting reconstruction.
So that's what Dow and I couldn't get over about this story, was the disposable income you must have. You're just like, no, I can drop 12 grand on getting rid of some bees.
Getting some bees taken out, yeah. Imagine the sound they were hearing from the walls and how crazy they must have thought they were going.
Thank you. And for those of you that know that I have a great fear of anything that has wings and a stinger, luckily this story aired last night, and I was fully prepared for it. Caden Milner, our incomparable producer, who tries to give me the heebie-jeebies every morning by putting on such stories. Well played, Caden. Live look outside of Television City. It is a gorgeous start. There go the birds. I love it when we catch a little live action there on the tower cam. Temperatures as low as 59 in Iola and now 58 in both Yates Center and Sedan. Compare that with some 68s that we have in Anderson, and we'll roll 64 in Pittsburgh, 65 in Miami. Clear Skywatch Storm Tracker minus that cloud cover that we have as the jet stream begins to push off to the east just a little bit. But as that ridge right here, as that ridge begins to move to the east as well, that's an indicator that we've got much warmer temperatures on the way. Any pop-up raindrops? Probably between 2 and 5. Now Thursday morning, this gets a little interesting late Thursday morning as we do try to formulate a little bit of rain also roll through. Certainly no cold front on the backside of it, as even though we'll roll 86s on Wednesday and Thursday, Friday back up into the 90s, and then a real hot-looking weekend into next week with the mid-90s coming at us.
Up next, discovering lost history.
A geophysical survey team has come down from Nebraska to visit Fort Scott. I'm Chris Warner. We'll tell you what they're here to do.
and how health experts and officials in Joplin are teaming up to promote vaccination efforts in the area. But first, more local election results. As the Delta variant continues to spread throughout southwest Missouri and hospitalizations remain high, community leaders come together to share information about vaccines. KOAM's Bronte Sorotsky has more.
The Joplin area is once again finding itself in the midst of the pandemic. That's why Access Family Care in Joplin hosted a community health collaborative to hear from local schools, hospitals, and officials.
That our hospitals are full. This is indeed the truth. We do not have the capacity to keep our friends, our neighbors, our family members here at our local hospitals when people need that acute care. We are having to transfer those individuals hours away.
Local school districts were in attendance and shared their message of keeping their students safe.
And we all share this feeling that we want our communities to get vaccinated, to be safe, and our kids will be back in school in about 3 weeks. And we're planning on doing everything we can to keep them safe, just like we did last year.
Joplin Mayor Pro Temp Keenan Cortez was also a speaker and says that while he cannot speak for the city council, that they are keeping a close eye on the number of cases.
We still have our reopening plan on the table, but at this time I don't believe there's any plans to do anything other than what we're currently doing.
One Joplin man in attendance, Jim Stone, was not a part of the panel, but wanted to attend to share why he encourages more people in the area to get vaccinated.
And I have now a 1-year-old granddaughter, it's my first grandchild, and because of the pandemic, I had only been able to see her 2 days in January until this last weekend when I traveled to Indiana for her first birthday, and it's because of the vaccines that I could spend 4 days with her then.
Which is why he says vaccines are so important. In Joplin, Bronte Sorotsky, KOAM News.
This coming Thursday, Access Family Care will host a free vaccine clinic and will also have free COVID-19 testing. More information about that is on our website, koamnewsnow.com. Crowder College's nursing program hosted a showcase yesterday. It was aimed at showing prospective and pre-nursing students what they'll be learning.
Short day, just to give you enough to get excited about nursing, and hopefully after today students leave feeling like, yes, this is where I want to be, or some might think, okay, this gave me just enough to understand maybe I want to go a different track.
The future nurses saw a simulation lab and learned about being a nurse during a pandemic. Machu Picchu appears to be older than scientists had originally thought. Researchers led by a Yale professor used carbon dating to estimate its age. They think Incans occupied the citadel as early as 1420. That's several decades earlier than historical documents suggest. The emperor oversaw the construction of Machu Picchu in what is now Peru.
Okay, so just a couple decades.
Just a couple of decades.
Okay, which I know historically is important. That
right.
fact isn't lost on me, but you had me hooked on that story there, and I was wondering how far off we may have been historically, dating back that far. I'll give you leeway there for a couple all the scientists and the historians. I give you leeway for a couple decades.
Especially whenever we're still estimating. Even with carbon dating, I know it's much more accurate, but estimations, a couple decades,
We've had carbon dating for so long. I wonder why, and look, obviously I'm the dummy here. I'm just curious why it took him that long to decide to do that carbon dating process to determine some of that. Or maybe it was a new find. I'm not sure. Anyway, I'll try to read up on that story. Current conditions outside of 7th and Range Line as the glow cloud now above the trees sits at 62 degrees. Temperatures ranging anywhere from the high 50s to mid 60s. It's an absolutely delightful start. Now the wind is beginning to shift on us already. Past couple of days has come in from the north-northeast. Now we see more of an easterly movement, and then at the bottom of your screen, Almost a little southeast. Now it's just 5 to 10 miles per hour, so it's not making any of a difference. But one thing that will do is provide us with some warmer temperatures. Two things at play here. That haze that's been hanging over us, it will continue today. But right here, as the jet stream continues to roll through us, it is pushing off to the east a little bit. So that'll take some of that particulate matter that causes that haze and dispatch it toward the Mississippi. Then we've got the ridge of the jet stream, and we know when that thing moves east as well, that's usually an indicator that we've got a little heat on its way, and that's exactly where we're going to find ourselves by the time the weekend rolls around. We'll have 86s for today and tomorrow. Then Friday, that's pretty seasonable, 92. Saturday and Sunday begin our scorcher that carries us into the mid-90s through next week. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this. Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News. And about once every week or so, we're fortunate enough to be joined by the wonderful Jasmine Kyle. She's the executive director at the SEK Humane Society. And very often, we are joined by Jasmine. And Jasmine, once again, thank you for your time this morning. And usually she'll have a dog, a cat, something in her lap that she shows us and lets us know how important it is to adopt. But we got a little different thing now that we've turned the calendar into August. It's called Clear the Shelter.
Yeah.
Our goal is to get everybody a home, isn't it, Jasmine?
Yes, it is. It's a big month for shelters. So for the whole month of August, we are doing something really drastic because we really are at full capacity. We're dropping dogs all the way down to just $20. All of the animals at our shelter are already spayed and neutered. They're microchipped. They're up to date on their vaccinations. They are ready to go to their forever homes. We've been in quarantine for the last 3 weeks. We do not discriminate when we intake sick animals. So we had to quarantine to get some upper respiratory under control, but we will be officially cleared this week. And our first open weekend to the public is this weekend, the first weekend in August. So people can do one of two things. You can either come see us this weekend, or two, you can actually go online to our website, which is thesekhumanesociety.com. You can see all of our adoptable animals there, and you can even submit an application, and we can schedule you your own private adoption appointment.
You know, it's crazy when you tell me there's only a $20 adoption fee, and they've got all their shots, they're microchipped, and then you actually have some animals that are sponsored, I guess would be the best term. They don't even have an adoption fee, is that correct?
Yep, that is correct. So for those individuals, this is from businesses to community members, from our neighbors in the area. They will sponsor them. Basically, they pay for their adoption fee, and that sponsorship is guaranteed for lifetime. They will forever not have an adoption once they are sponsored with us.
Okay, so that's our goal for the month of August, folks. We're going to clear the shelter, find everybody wonderful homes. Now, I know you also have some exciting news about the food bank program partnering with the United States Humane Society. And I want to be able to give you time to give a shout out to everybody who played a key role in that.
Yeah, so we were very blessed early into the pandemic with getting food from greater good charities and through the United States Humane Society. It was earlier this year that we had a miracle happen, and the United States Humane Society, Chewy, was able to partner with us, and we got in 25 pallets. We're talking about 35,000 pounds of food. That program has been going on for 4.5 months. So we were down to our last 2 nights, and we had another miracle happen, and the United States Humane Society and Chewy reached out to us, and they wanted to partner up again. So we are very pleased to share that we just got done last week unloading another 25 pallets of food that is going to provide another at least a minimum 3 months of food for this program. So we are going to be continuing it. It's every Wednesday night at our shelter from 4:30 to 6.
Jasmine can't thank you enough and the SEK Humane Society for not only making sure that the dogs that you take in are safe and find homes, but also to taking care of those who have homes but may be in need at this point in time. Jasmine Kyle, Executive Director of the SEK Humane Society, thank you so much for your time. Catch up with you here next week, couple weeks?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, I appreciate it. You have a great day, Jasmine. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this.
It's time to honor today's 4-state hero. Private First Class Christopher Irway joined the United States Army in 2003. He fought in Iraq as a member of the 1st Cavalry. His hometown, Kansas City, Missouri. We're proud to salute Christopher Irway, a 4-state hero. A geophysical survey is taking place in Fort Scott, Kansas. My bud Chris Warner went to the fort and has more on what exactly is being done.
The team is from Lincoln, Nebraska, specifically the Midwest Archaeological Center, which is part of the National Park Service. They're here to survey the Fort Scott National Historic Site with help of some fancy tech.
Gradiometers, electrical resistance, ground penetrating radar, electromagnetic induction.
And what they're using it for is to uncover lost history.
The goal is to locate those features in a non-destructive way. So whereas in the past we might be out here excavating to better understand the site or buildings that we suspect were once here, we're using these instruments to peer below the ground surface and get a better idea about historic features and the archaeology of the site.
There's a few things they know roughly where to look for.
The hospital, which is now the visitor center, had a latrine and a storage shed behind it, so we'll be looking for those two structures. Each of the officers' quarters had a series of buildings, the same buildings, latrines and storage sheds behind them. Some are still standing, but others are no longer standing, but we know they were located behind those buildings, so we'll be looking for those.
Others will be a bit harder to find.
We can see where the buildings once stood. We can lay out what we have known through drawings exactly where they were so that we can really get a picture of how this fort looked back in the 1840s, almost 180 years ago.
Carl Brenner with the fort says it's exciting to learn more about the real Fort Scott.
Most people that visit the fort don't have a clue what all's back here. When I started here, I didn't have a clue what all was back here. This is going to tell us those stories. This is going to share what really happened at the fort, what it really looked like. Is what looks like just a field actually has life or had life on top of it, but that life is being told through the stories that's below it.
The team will be at the fort for 2 weeks. They're planning to return in the spring following a prescribed burn of the prairie nearby to look for other pieces of lost history. In historic Fort Scott, Chris Warner, KOAM News.
Brenner says they're hoping to use what they find combined with old photos to create augmented reality tours where you'll be able to hold up your phone and see what once was there. Another half hour of news and weather just ahead. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14, the rise of drone shows.
Could fireworks shows be a thing of the past? I'm Marianne Rafferty with a look at how drones are being used to create stunning nighttime performances. Coming up.
And why the next phase in the search for remains from the Tulsa Race Massacre is sparking controversy. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We'll be right back.
4 States Most Watched News starts now.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:32. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Numbers are in from Election Day as voters in parts of the area decide tax issues impacting schools, emergency services, and community events. And as you see, we're going to begin with a proposal to extend a 1/4-cent sales tax in Joplin for 10 years. Voters said yes to that plan to pay for stormwater control and parks. Voters in Carthage were asked whether to allow the city to collect a use tax, which would apply to purchases made online and from out-of-state vendors. It will be the same rate as the local tax rate, sales tax rate, because the proposal passed. City officials estimate the tax will generate about $740,000 a year. A Jasper County proposal will allow the 911 board to increase its sales tax rate above the 0.1% it currently receives. Voters approved the plan, allowing a tax of up to 0.25%. Over in Kansas, Columbus, Kansas voters accepted a $14.75 million school bond proposal. It's going to fund various improvements and additions to the central campus facility, including new classrooms, safe room, cafeteria, and kitchen. And in Chautauqua, Kansas, voters said yes to a 1/2-cent 5-year sales tax proposal for parks and street maintenance and improvements. We'll have some more election results later on in the show, but as always, you can find those election numbers right now at KOAMnewsnow.com. New this morning, Missouri Republican Congressman Billy Long announces his candidacy for U.S. Senate. Long represents Missouri's 7th district, which includes both Joplin and Springfield. He'll be seeking the seat of retiring Senator Roy Blunt. He enters a high Republican field that includes Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt, former Governor Eric Greitens, Congresswoman Vicki Hartzler, and St. Louis lawyer Mark McCloskey. One of the largest employers in the 4 states announces it's requiring vaccines for its U.S.-based workforce. Tyson Foods made the announcement yesterday. The company also announced it would give $200 to fully vaccinated team members. Tyson's chief medical officer said, quote, "Getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is the single most effective thing we can do to protect our team members, their families, and the community." Pittsburgh State University announces new COVID-19 mitigation measures. Prior to moving into residence halls, students will have to either submit proof of vaccination, show they've had the virus at some point since March, had a negative test within 72 hours of arrival, or be willing to take a COVID test when they arrive for move-in day. The university is encouraging faculty, staff, and students to get vaccinated and will offer incentives to vaccinated students. Additionally, all faculty, staff, and students will be required to wear a face mask indoors regardless of vaccination status if social distancing is not possible. This policy will be reviewed every 2 weeks, and more information can be found on our website. Scientists said July was a really shaky month at Yellowstone National Park. One expert called it a, quote, doozy of a month. The U.S. Geological Survey shared its monthly report on earthquake activity Monday. It says seismologists reported more than 1,000 minor quakes around Yellowstone last month. It's the most quakes reported at the national park since June of 2017. Most of the tremors were a part of 7 different swarms. A swarm is a series of small quakes that happen back to back for a short period. The agency says the largest swarm saw more than 764 earthquakes hit beneath Yellowstone Lake. That's a lot of earthquakes.
You ever been in an earthquake?
Not like a legit earthquake. I've felt some of the tremors that we get, kind of those residuals
even the one that we had
here.
a couple years ago that everybody was talking.
Right.
I think I slept through it. So I've never actually felt the ground shake underneath me, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it'd be wild. Yeah, me too.
I'm good. Zach, we can use the Skywatch Storm Tracker to kind of point out where current earthquakes are here in the past 12 hours, and luckily it's calmed down there at Yellowstone. Look down here, though. We got a couple that have through Oklahoma. Of course, we're familiar with those that happen right on the Oklahoma-Kansas state line. It's a gorgeous start outside the Television City and 7th and Range line. That's a look at the intersection right there. Our temperatures ranging anywhere from the high 50s to the low 60s, and by the time we get to the afternoon, we're talking about mid-80s. Now, the haze remains. Our air quality a little bit better than yesterday, but still, COPD, asthma, related illnesses like that, you want to be very, very careful. If you do not want to do anything extenuating and anything strenuous outside. We'll kind of let that pass off to the east here for the next couple of days. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Labette Community.
KOAM News Now Facebook page in our morning Insta poll. Missouri Governor Mike Parson making good on his promise to pardon Mark and Patricia McCloskey. The McCloskeys gained notoriety for pointing guns at demonstrators as they marched past their home in St. Louis last year. Now in June, the couple pleaded guilty to misdemeanors related to that incident. Those charges now pardoned by Governor Parson. Our question to you is, do you agree with the governor's pardon of the McCloskeys? And it started out with the yeses chiming in at about 90% consistently. And while we've seen that number drop, it's pretty much held steady here for the past several hours, with the yeses coming in about 3/4 of you saying yes. That's 76%. Haven't seen a whole lot of movement. Of course, hey, you can make your voice heard each and every morning. Go to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. Zach?
Thanks, Michael. In Oklahoma, a team with the 1921 Graves investigation in Tulsa laid to rest 19 remains on Friday. The interment phase came as experts continued working to identify whose remains they were, how they died, and if they were victims of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. As Sierra Pizarro reports, the burial was not without some controversy.
Excavators and other heavy machinery are now frequent visitors of Oaklawn Cemetery. But on Friday, they were unwelcome.
Kind of offended us, so we decided that we were going to yell out and make sure they understood, hey, we out here, do you not see us? And they didn't care.
Some are frustrated they were kept outside the fence line while potential ancestors were put back underground.
You find remains, a skull with a bullet hole. That seems like you're just beginning to get somewhere.
And several 1921 Graves Oversight Committee members met Thursday night to express distrust with the city of Tulsa's race massacre investigation. They believe there's a lack of transparency and take Friday's reburial as a sign the investigation has paused or ended altogether.
Why is the city not listening to us? Why are not taking into account that we care very much that this be done properly?
The City of Tulsa's communications director sent me this statement, which first reads that the city is committed to transparency during the investigation and that their work is still underway. Also included is a reminder that temporary reburial at Oaklawn was planned in March.
Although remains have been reburied, the work is far from over. Experts are still working to identify the remains through DNA testing. We'll be right back after this. The head of the Securities and Exchange Commission says the agency is planning tighter regulation of virtual currencies. Chairman Gary Gensler yesterday said cryptocurrency markets are rife with fraud but free of meaningful oversight. He likened the situation to the Wild West and called on Congress to expand the SEC's authority to protect crypto investors. Millions of dollars in student debt is gone. Thousands of students with debt from their time as students at historically black colleges and universities are getting major assistance. Daryl Forges has a closer look.
Carrington Wiggum is a rising senior at Florida A&M University. She's also the student body president and has big dreams after college.
So I know I want to end up in the political arena or the entertainment arena.
The rising senior had an unpaid balance of $8,000 she needed to clear before registering for classes, when suddenly her balance was wiped out.
When I saw that there was nothing in my account, especially being an out-of-state student, I was like, I'm not going to even put a question mark where God put a period.
Wiggum wasn't alone. It happened to thousands of students on campuses like hers around the country.
You should know that for the last year and a half, this institution has provided more than $16 million in student support and direct debt relief.
FAMU is among at least 20 HBCUs that paid off a combined total of more than $25 million in student debt in the last 3 months. That's thanks to the funding from the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund, which is also part of the CARES Act.
I've received calls and texts and emails from students who otherwise would not be able to return to school in the fall.
A 2016 study by the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities found about 78% of bachelor's degrees recipients graduate with less than $30,000 in debt. HBCU officials say forgiving debt, especially for these students of color, is crucial.
These students have less debt, which means their credit score is going to be better, which means their opportunity to purchase homes, to purchase cars, to purchase other items.
For Wiggum, her family works hard to put her and her brother through college, and this help will go a long way.
I feel like I just have to continue the torch to make sure that their endorsement essentially goes to great use.
I'm Daryl Forges reporting.
We'll be right back with more after this, but first, let's take a look at the market before the opening bell. It's time for What the Tech. Fireworks may be beautiful and loud and awesome, but experts say they can also be harmful to the environment. Marianne Rafferty has an in-depth look at how drones are quickly becoming the new alternative.
You've probably seen them on TV during big stadium shows, insane light displays done with drones. But they could soon be coming to your own backyard to dazzle guests at your future summertime barbecue, birthday party, and more.
We have a brand new artistic medium on our hands.
and it's incredibly exciting.
British company Celestial is one business reimagining the way people view drones, breathing new life into these flying devices and using them for entertainment purposes. And as they grow in popularity, drone shows could be on their way to replacing traditional fireworks.
We love fireworks, but they blow things up, they're single use, they make things catch on fire, and they scare animals. So what we're trying to do is create something creatively more interesting, green, because we use renewable energy sources, and we don't scare the animals.
Besides posing possible environmental hazards, fireworks also have limitations when it comes to the shapes they can make. Drones, on the other hand, offer endless possibilities, from sharp geometric patterns to lifelike animals.
We want to inject organic movement and human spirit into these drones and into this technology.
Efforts to reduce firework use are already underway, with governments in India and China advocating against large displays during holidays to limit air pollution.
Curious to see how that plays out. Because
it would
fireworks
be curious.
Industry very big in the 4 states here, and
right.
Also too, with China being a major producer of fireworks, I find it curious that they don't like large displays.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how all that plays out.
Good story, Caden Milner. You got my eyes
Sure.
focused on that one now. See where the future of that goes. That's going to be an interesting one here at home. Current conditions over 7th range line. Speaking of here at home, 62 degrees is where we stand in Joplin. Let's go 66 in Miami. We've got those 66 in Nevada as well. 62 in Carthage and 64 in Parsons. Wind is shifting now, coming in from the east, if not the southeast, down there at the bottom of your screen, an indicator that we're going to have some warmer temperatures. A little bit of cloud cover is all we have to worry about. Any precipitation really won't pop up until this afternoon, and it will be light. What we've got working right now is the jet stream, as it comes through us, has shifted a little bit to the east compared to where it was yesterday. While the haze sticks around, it's a good indicator that it is going to be able to take everything and move it toward the Mississippi River by the time we get to the weekend. Now, as we progress with that, so if this is going to go this way, the ridge is going to go this way. And once the ridge gets over us, we know what that means. That means the return of some heat. Now, time being, severe thunderstorm risk map, not only quiet for us, really quiet throughout the contiguous 48, just a little bit up there and through portions of Montana, even hit the marginal area. And all the rain that they have down from the Gulf Coast up to the Mid-Atlantic should remain just as August showers. Our afternoon planner is going to put us up into the mid-60s, and then overnight we'll go partly cloudy skies. Now, by the time we get to late Thursday morning, I might want to throw an umbrella in the car here on Thursday, just in case, because here's what we're looking at for late Thursday morning. Let's just begin to kind of bubble up right there, and it's not going to last long by any means. We're not going to have any prolonged rain. And it certainly doesn't slow us down on the thermometers. We'll be back up into the low 90s on Friday. And then once Saturday and Sunday hits, the mid-90s continue into next week. We'll be back. Wrap up this edition of the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Here's what's happening today. There's mounting pressure for New York Governor Andrew Cuomo to step down. Findings of an independent investigation released Tuesday reveal the 3-term Democratic governor sexually harassed at least 11 women inside and outside of government and created a hostile work environment. Cuomo denies the allegations, saying he never touched anyone inappropriately or made inappropriate sexual advances. The CDC has issued a new temporary moratorium on evictions. The new order expires October 3rd. It covers counties experiencing substantial or high levels of COVID-19 spread, where about 90% of the U.S. population resides. Starting today, unionized U.S. auto workers must resume wearing masks in factories, offices, and warehouses because of the fast-spreading Delta variant of the coronavirus. Meat processor Tyson also announced it now will require all of its U.S. employees to get vaccinated. Now let's check in with Michael for your final look at the forecast.
A little sunshine today, be up into the mid-80s. Going to be absolutely delightful. Very reminiscent of what we had on Monday and Tuesday, if not just a couple of degrees warmer, and then we kind of rinse and repeat for Thursday. Remember, the haze sticks around from the West Coast wildfires, so try to be careful outside. No prolonged strenuous activity, and then get ready for the heat wave by the time we get to the weekend.
Now here's something you probably won't turn your nose at unless you're a vegetarian anyway. IKEA announced Tuesday that it has a candle that smells like the retailer's iconic Swedish meatballs, because why not? It's called a huvudroll, and it's available in IKEA's store-in-a-box package aimed at recreating the sensory experience of being inside of an IKEA. But, all right. The package, which includes the meatball candle, is a part of a sweepstakes honoring the 10th anniversary of IKEA's U.S. Family Rewards program. Can you imagine coming home from work one day and your spouse is burning the candle, but you think that they're cooking some kind of meat, and then you realize that they're not, and it's just disappointment?
And then it turns out you're a vegetarian. Thanks for letting us put the good in your morning. More news and weather at noon.
Have a great morning and an even better day.
I started